Welcome to the SNI Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Latomsky. With deep roots in the Canadian regulatory landscape for the last 18 years, SNI has helped hundreds of companies get on the shelf quickly and compliantly so that they can sell more and grow their brands. On this show, you'll hear stories from SNI's clients, plus the team's insights on how to overcome your biggest compliance issues and create a standout brand in the food and natural wellness space. The SNI Podcast is your source for market compliance. Now, on to the episode. Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, we're chatting with two members of the SNI Creative Services team, and we're talking all about food photography. So Christel, the Associate Director of Creative Services at SNI, and Alexis, one of the graphic designers here at SNI. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Excellent. Let's jump in. Christel, tell me a little bit about your role at the company.
It started as a designer, and then after 15 years of working with SNI, I've grown to manage the creative services team quite a bit. I collaborate with the creative solutions and the creative team, and I've also been helping to manage the website and some of the digital marketing and social media management.
Excellent. How long ago did you start?
15 years.
15 years?
Yeah.
Wow, climbing the ranks.
Yeah. Well, when you like it, you stay.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That seems to be a common thread.
Yeah.
Alexis, how about yourself?
So I'm a graphic designer here at SNI, and I'm also training to be a project manager as well. I actually just completed a PMI course. So
right on.
Yeah, really excited about that. I think that can help me bring a lot to the team. I have the pleasure of collaborating with Christel and other team members as well on the daily. My days involve tasks such as building product labels, editing product photography, sometimes designing labels from scratch, and that's a little bit of what I do. I also make the first pot of coffee in the morning, and I think the team members appreciate that.
Probably the most important job.
Very grateful.
Arguably, yeah.
How long have you been here for?
I've been here it's coming up on 4 years.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Crazy.
Very exciting.
Very exciting.
Feels like yesterday.
It
Yeah,
does.
Time
It does.
flies when you're having fun, right?
We have lots of fun.
We do.
So let's talk about this awesome service offering that you have as part of your creative services packages. Food photography. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. Everybody always kind of wonders how it comes together, and it's quite a complicated process, but it's fun at the same time. The process involves a lot of styling the food ahead of time, and we have to make sure that there's sometimes models available. There's some grocery shopping involved, making sure your garnishes are fresh, and you have to choose the right props, like plate sizes and plate colors.
Oh,
yeah. It's
Wow.
That's a task.
it is, but when you work with a really good team of people that are experienced, it comes together a lot easier than it sounds.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I come from the marketing and ad agency background. I've seen a lot of the photo shoots. I have always found it interesting, the amount of work that goes in pre-shoot, during the shoot, and then post. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. It is a lot of work. So why not just purchase stock photography? Where's the value in doing what you do versus just buying the images?
It's a really good question. I think a lot of the times you have to make sure that the food inside the package matches the outside, because it has to be authentic. Otherwise, you're going to mislead the customer into thinking that they're having something from the stock photo when the package contents aren't exactly the same. So especially if the product is unique and specific to a brand, you can't really fudge that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And depicting, if you have your own unique product, it can be very tough to depict that through stock photography. And, you think of stock photography and you think, it's probably the more cost-effective route to go. But in the end, if your product is so unique that we have to spend hours editing a stock photo, ultimately, is that more expensive, or is that more cost-effective, or is it just better to go, the photography route and have your product actually photographed?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that process in the pre-shoot section, walk me through that with the client. So are there mood boards, concept boards? How do you get a feel for the product, the brand? What does that process look like?
Our clients have brand standards that we have to follow, but they typically have in mind what they want the messaging to be from the photo on the package. So as an example, a pork cutlet, it could the client could want the target audience to see it as a plated item with a German flair like sauerkraut or Spätzle or something like that. So they'll give us direction, and then we have to go out and our team will shop for the right ingredients, make sure the contrasting colors work well. Sometimes there's a lot of balancing to the making sure that the main photo is the focus and not the garnishes. So it's like a ratioed selection. Something else that I think I've learned over the years is that like the shape of the package also matters. So if it's like a long, narrow box, a like round circle doesn't quite fit on it right. So you have to like think about which plate will fill that space available properly.
There's so much thought that goes into it before we actually photograph products. Like we just had a situation where we were trying to hunt down a very small skillet.
Oh yeah, that's right.
There's a lot that goes into it, you know. So
yeah, and I'm even thinking about like just product photography, like in general, just making sure, like I'm thinking even lighting and setting. Like, do you want to see it in a residential or a commercial kitchen? Do you want it all dark features or light?
Yeah.
Like, so
Right.
that's all decided sort of up front with the client when you're going through that?
a lot of times, like we also photograph with just a white, like we'll have it on a white table, so we can actually put that into different settings.
Oh.
Yeah, so that keeps it, like if we were to photograph, I guess you could always edit it out and put onto a different, but it works better to just have it on a white background and then
Right.
be able to just take that and put it,
gives you
in
that
different environments. Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So then what kind of things in the post-production side for you, Alexis, is important for you to know sort of up front that's going to make your editing life a lot easier?
I think just having an idea of what the final product photograph will look like, because like Christel said, it's good to keep this stuff in mind when we're building labels, because oftentimes I'll receive a project and maybe it'll take 2 weeks to finally photograph it because we have to wait for the product samples to come in the mail, and the photo shoot might only be scheduled 2 or 3 weeks down the road. So I'm not going to sit here and not start the project. So I try to keep in mind or get an idea of what this will look like. I end up putting in an FPO image just for placement. That stands for placement only. And I go ahead and build the label, but I don't want to have to go back and rework a bunch of stuff because let's say, it ends up being a different shape than I anticipated. And obviously sometimes I have to do that, but I try to do the best that I can to get an idea of what the photography will look like before I start building the label, just to be efficient.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So photo shoot day comes. What are some of those issues and challenges that you would typically run into when doing that photo shoot?
A big one is making sure that we get like the samples in great shape. I mean, you don't want a broken cookie on the front of a package. Obviously the customer wants to put their best foot, or the client wants to put their best foot forward. So, we'll get like 2 boxes or 3 boxes of cookies. At the same time, it's really difficult not to open up those cookie boxes and eat them yourself.
They're looking at you. They're staring at you from the garden.
There's so many here. I could definitely eat some of these and nobody will notice.
Don't eat them. We need the backups.
Yeah. Also, like the time it takes to communicate, like we have a really efficient process with the time it takes to communicate between, what the client wants with the photo team. And some of the ingredients that are used are like they will melt or they will wilt or the grease will like solidify and then it turns kind of like opaque. So there's a lot of like making sure that that's timely process, or having a backup like, okay, well this, pack of ribs won't work anymore because now it's like cold looking, like people can tell.
Yeah.
And there's only...
Yeah.
Well, Alexis is amazing at her job. There's only so much she can do with Photoshop.
Yeah, and it gets pretty pricey to be sitting there for hours trying to, edit out. And I was going to also mention that what you mentioned before with the getting multiple packs of the same product, like ice cream, if you're spending hours photographing it and it's starting to melt, it's good to have a backup in the freezer.
Yeah.
Because in a perfect world, you'd take a few snapshots and they'd all be perfect and then you'd be on your way. But oftentimes these photo shoots take hours to do. And unfortunately, ice cream just can't last hours out of the freezer.
Yeah. And then in cases like that, sometimes too, like our photo team is really savvy. They'll they'll create like ice cream out of like fondant.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen some of those like tricks on like online, social media and stuff. So what are your tricks? I was gonna get some behind the scenes secrets here.
Oh, well, they like, yeah, it's really important, like I mentioned earlier, that the product looks exactly like what the contents are. So that's why the samples are still good, so that when we're making the fondant, we make sure the color matches and the texture matches, because
it's important not to mislead or be dishonest about the product that's in the package.
Yeah,
so.
the integrity of the actual product is really, really important.
For sure.
Yeah.
Because you see those fails like fast food companies where it's like a picture of the burger and they open up the box and it's smashed.
Right?
Like a certain popular fast food company.
Right?
I mean, does that.
Yeah,
that triple decker does not look that big.
It just looks so, it always looks so glorious and fluffy, and the cheese is perfect, and and then you get it and it's all smashed.
Yeah. So we try to make sure it's as close as possible. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So on the shoot, when you're going through the motions, you're taking the pictures, you're trying to capture everything. How do you make sure that what you're capturing is the perfect shot and it aligns with the mood board, the concept board, and the brand as you're kind of capturing those images?
During like the communication process, we'll often kind of do it's poor terminology, but we do a quick and dirty mock-up of it, really. Like we'll place what we just took on top of like the package, so that when I'm sharing it with like my client, they'll be able to envision it on the shelf. I think that's actually been a really important tool in the end to like get people happy, because visually people always like they see something in their head, and then when they see it actually on the end result, it sometimes doesn't work out the way they wish it would.
Yeah, and I was going to add to that, sometimes they have this idea of like, we want a certain garnish with this dish here, and then we want to take a picture of it with like maybe a different garnish on the same plate, and then they see both and they're like, I want both garnishes on one plate. And that's when I come in and I have to kind of crop it out and paste it in and add it in there. But it's hard to know exactly what you want until you see it right in front of you, right? Because you have this idea in your head, and sometimes seeing it physically in front of you, you change your mind about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so like having backup options is like really important when you're doing a photo shoot
or
too.
shooting.
Like, oh, maybe I didn't want that coleslaw with the purple in it. Like maybe just a green one is all we wanted.
Or shooting the garnishes separately.
Oh yeah,
Save some
we've done
time.
that.
We have done that before.
Yeah.
We have. But it's
Tips and tricks.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So just like some isolated crumbs sometimes.
Isolated crumbs. You have like an isolated like mint leaf or whatever you need, and it's nice. And if you're working if this is all for the same client, you could always file it away. And if you need to add garnish, if you have a library full of garnishes,
for
you can add it
sure.
to other
That's smart.
Yeah,
photos.
some of these mediums are also not just like, or the end result isn't always on a package either. Like some of our clients use the photos on like, catalogs and brochures and flyers and stuff
So
like
you
that.
got to think through all settings where it's going to work.
Yeah, or do a few angles so that they can have kind of a library of, they spent all this money like putting, a photo shoot together. They deserve to have a few like different versions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you ever invite the clients to the shoot to kind of oversee or provide real-time feedback?
FaceTime.
Yeah, it's usually
Or
FaceTime.
FaceTime.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of our clients aren't here,
Yeah.
right? So, thank goodness for technology.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Except when it goes wrong. Except when FaceTime's not working.
Oh,
yeah.
Then you just take pictures of what you're doing and send it real.
We've always found ways around it, though. We've always found ways to get it done, and sometimes it's a little stressful, but we get it done.
Yeah. I can imagine that would make your life in post-production a lot easier if you're getting that feedback real time with the client.
Yeah, for sure. It helps me kind of get a feel for just what they're wanting, and it does.
And then when you're doing the final edits, final touches, getting that perfect photo, are you working with like sort of the aligned like mood boards and concept boards? Like how are you sort of getting that final product together?
Yeah, so I feel like quite a few clients that we work with we've been working with them for a while, so I have a good understanding of their brand guidelines and what they want, and I'm able to touch up photos accordingly. Like we work with a certain client that has everything a certain way with a shadow going a certain way, so I edit it that way, and then we might have a client that wants something different. So I think having a good understanding of their brand guidelines really helps.
Absolutely.
and knowing what they like, and if it's a new client, then talking to them about what they want and keeping that in mind.
Yeah, like a creative brief sort of situation
Yeah.
usually at the start too.
Yeah.
That goes a
it's very
long way
important.
for
Yeah,
sure.
it does. And I mean, it gives you kind of like a really wonderful dialogue to be able to talk to them like they're humans, right?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Right on. I love how much I learn about this company. The more episodes I do, the more I find out about it. It's awesome. Having all these service offerings under one roof, I could imagine makes your lives a lot easier, not having to deal with so many third party and other companies to get things done. It's not siloed. But more importantly, your customers probably love it. It's a one-stop shop. They just come to you. You guys can do so many different things under one roof.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Christel and Alexis, for joining me today. I
Thanks,
appreciate
Justin.
it.
Yeah, it was great.
Right
Thanks
on.
for having us.
And thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll see you soon. Thanks for listening to the SNI Podcast. To learn more about SNI and receive even more resources to help you reach your business goals, including information on regulatory compliance, clinical trials, and creative solutions for the natural health and food industries, follow us at Source-Nutraceutical-Inc. on LinkedIn. You can also visit our website at sourcenutra.com. Thanks again, and see you next time.